Welcome to Stories That Sell, the podcast for business owners who want to create real connection through their content. I'm your host, Naomi Rose, and each week I will be speaking with an incredible person talking about their stories from behind the business. Not just what they do, but who they are. Because behind every business there's a person, and the person is the reason people choose to trust you, buy from you, and recommend you. So in these conversations, we go a bit deeper than the surface level offers that you might have. We talk about the journeys, the decisions, the moments that shape them, and the stories that have built relationships, their reputation, and the way they show up today. Connection builds relationships, relationships build reputation, and that's what leads to referrals and real business growth. Let's get on with today's episode. Staffordshire-based Emma Hine is a business growth strategist who helps business owners simplify their businesses and find their own version of success and happiness. But Emma's story is rooted in understanding how other people's opinions can shape what they think success should look like. As a teenager, Emma was told by a teacher that she would never make anything of herself. At the time, she brushed it off, but after leaving school at 16 and becoming a mum, part of her wondered whether that teacher had been right. She went on to spend 14 years in the building society world, working her way up to become sales and regulatory change manager. But even with the career progression, something was missing. Emma wanted freedom. So in 2006, along with husband Adrian, she launched an online card and gift business. From the outside world, it worked. The business grew into a 7-figure success, the premises, growth, money, all the things that should have made it feel like she had made it. But behind the scenes, Emma was working 80 to 90 hours a week, building a life around proving other people wrong instead of asking what would make her happy. Eventually, the business that she thought would give her freedom became the thing taking it away. So Emma stripped everything back and rebuilt. This time, she designed a business around the life she actually wanted. Simple, profitable, sustainable, and genuinely enjoyable. That experience now shapes everything Emma teaches. Alongside running her business, Emma is a mum to 3 girls, nanny to 3 more, author of The Calibrated Life, host of the Simple Business Dream Life podcast, and creator of the Growth Event. She has been with Adrian since 1990, loves sunshine, fizz, good company, and jumping on a plane somewhere warm wherever she can. She also loves a bit of lottery, cannot stand snobbery, and camping is a hard no, which quite frankly is a completely reasonable opinion in my view. And what perhaps sums Emma up the best is something she says herself. If you're happy doing something you love, you're going to grow a successful business around that. Emma, welcome to Stories That Sell.
Thank you so much. Do you know what? It is really fascinating to listen to somebody reading my story back to me rather than me telling it to them. I'm sitting here and smiling thinking, oh, wow. And I'm thinking, oh, God, that's me. That's absolutely me.
I know. And you're, in a way, it's so lovely to talk to you. And we were just chatting off the recording of this. And we nearly went into doing the whole entire podcast episode without actually recording it. But we're actually talking about the kind of journeys that have led us to what we've seen a success looks like. And I really want to know, when you realised you weren't happy, what was it that triggered that moment? Was it one moment, or was it just a cumulative thing of things just building up over time?
To be honest, it was a good 10-year journey before I actually made the decision to say, this is it. I need to choose happiness over trying to please other people, so to speak. So it was a long process. The very first time that it sort of hit me and I thought something's not quite right in the business was when my youngest daughter, who at the time was not quite 9, she was just before Christmas, before she would have been 9, ended up in hospital with a broken femur, which ended up being a cyst in a bone, and long time in hospital. It was about an 18-year thing getting this sorted. But I remember sitting in that hospital knowing that the business was crazy, our busiest time of the year. And I remember sitting there thinking, why am I sitting here thinking about the business when my daughter is lying in a bed in absolute agony with what is going on? Why am I thinking about the business? Why is that the thing that is sort of sitting there thinking, I should be doing this, I should be at work, I should be doing all of this stuff? What's going to happen if the orders don't go out? So that was the first time it really, really hit me. But when we got back to normality, we were back home and everything else, I soon stepped back into, I'll just focus on the work. I'll just focus on the business. And there was various points then throughout the next sort of 10 years where I had sort of, I call them warnings, things where they're saying, Luke, this is your opportunity to recognise that something isn't quite right here. But it was just randomly after COVID, we'd worked all through COVID because we were an e-commerce business and we were still allowed to trade. And it made us really busy because you couldn't get anything. Shops were closed. So where did everybody go? Me included. You go straight online to buy the thing. So we were really, really busy during COVID. And we just got to the end of Christmas 2020. And I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I just cannot physically bring myself to get back into doing this again for another year and another year and another year. And we walked away from that Christmas and said, we're going to sit and we're going to work out how we can do this differently because we need to be the priority.
Yeah. And I think it's so hard to do that when you're running on the treadmill, keeping everybody else happy, your customers. You feel like this obligation to them, don't you? You feel like they're actually more than your own worth. That's certainly how I felt when I had the cafe, bar and bakery. I'm like, I can't possibly not do a service because people are relying on me. And you kind of get into this wrong mindset, don't you? It's completely the wrong priority.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, and I don't know if this was the same for you, Naomi, but there was also this fear of what people would think if I suddenly stepped out of this image that had been built up of me as you know, the 7-figure business owner who had the cars and the holidays and all of the things that sort of went with that. I thought, what would people think? You know, what would people think of me? And I think that was something that stopped me doing it for a long time. Not necessarily knowingly at the time. It's when I walked away and changed things that I sat and did that reflective work for the couple of years after that really honed in on. I was worried what other people would think of me rather than thinking about what I wanted to think of me.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And you see that happen so often where how much you earn or the money you have in your bank account or the possessions you have puts you in a certain position of who you are and showing you as successful, doesn't it? And it, in a way, like, and I was thinking about this the other day because I was having a very similar conversation with my other half who has worked up the career ladder. He's currently, he took voluntary redundancy back in February and he's not working. And he'd done the same thing a couple of years ago where he'd done voluntary redundancy. It's his second time in 2 years. And he felt lost in the world because he didn't have like that kind of financial kind of status in his life.
It
And
becomes your identity, doesn't it? It becomes
yeah,
what you're known as. I suppose it's a bit like being a parent or whatever else. You just suddenly that becomes your identity rather than it actually being you. And that's why I walked away from, I say walked away, why I chose to leave corporate because I wanted to be me, to have that freedom. And then when I went on and created something that gave me even less freedom. Crazy.
yeah. And I wonder at what point did we decide, obviously we all need money. They say money makes the world go round, all of these kind of things. But at what point did we decide money will give us freedom and success? It's just such an interesting one.
It is, isn't it? And I think part of it is the world of social media, isn't it? You know, it's quite often a reel, isn't it? We just see a little bit of it. We don't see always the full picture of what people are having to sacrifice to have these things that we just assume is making them, you know, successful. It's what it looks like, isn't it, rather than what it feels like. And I only think it's recently that we've really got into more, not completely, but more people being open about what it actually takes to build a business, what it actually takes to build a 6-figure, a 7-figure, an 8-figure business, or wherever it is that you are going. So I think that's always been part of it, hasn't it? This perception of what we see and what we assume means somebody's living the best life because, I don't know, they're on a beach somewhere doing something lovely, they've had a new car or a new house. We just assume that everything else in their life must be perfect because they've got this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I always remember thinking, God, I've got this business and yeah, it's turning 6 figures, but it's barely making a profit and I've got holes in my shoes. I mean, that was the reality of what went behind the scenes sometimes. And, you know, people, I always thought one of my biggest frustrations when I opened the cafe and bar and I didn't have a mentor, I just made the plan myself and I did it and I found out the information and it was like it was a secret society. That's what it felt like, because I couldn't exactly walk into like another cafe and go, how do you do this? How do you do this thing? I just had an idea. And when I decided to close that, I was really open about it because I didn't want people to not learn and understand how these things work. I wanted them to go into this business if they wanted to or do that, understanding what the reality is like, because it's not all sunshine and daisies. It's actually very much the opposite. I didn't spend all my time baking. Actually, I probably spent 10% of my time doing the stuff I actually love. The rest of it's business. So it's just so fascinating. And I know at one point you actually did make that decision to sort of step back and take 3 weeks out. I did a very similar thing because I couldn't see what I needed to do in order to move this business forward in the right way. And I had to take a month out. I had to actually physically take a month out. And it was the best decision I made. It was actually one where I went, actually, financially, I can't sustain this. It's not possible. I've looked at every angle. I've got to walk away. So we opened until we could, and then I closed it. But it's so fascinating when you make that decision to step back, isn't it? And kind of go,
You can see it when you're in there doing the do. When you're in the business, working in the business constantly, and never have time to stop. And you just touched on that. You run a baking business, but you didn't really bake. It was all the other stuff that has to. You're the marketing, you're the tech person, you're the CEO, the purchaser. You're all of the things that sit around it. So you don't have that time to do that, do you? And I think where we go wrong as business owners, and certainly where I went wrong as a business owner, is I allowed myself to just keep doing the do and never really stepped into the CEO, the person who was sitting and, having that umbrella view looking from the outside in at what was actually going on within the business. So it was just, and that sort of became, this is probably the wrong word to use, but it actually became easier to not look outside in when the money was coming in more, because there was never that sort of like financial, oh, we need to have a look at something because the money's not there, because I always knew that even if I spent a load of money, and boy, I spent a lot of money, but I knew that the next lot of money would come in because that the business was at that sort of stable point where it was constantly flowing in. So that actually made it easier for me, in a bad way, to not actually sit and look at what was going on in the business. I don't even know if that makes sense. It does in my head.
yeah. Oh, yeah, completely. Because if it's not broke, why fix it? It's like
Yeah,
it's operating. It's
absolutely.
bringing in the money, and this happens. I think this happens more often than people realise. And there's also, like you say, at what point do you make the decision of what your role as CEO looks like and how that will work? And actually, if you're doing the doing and it's carrying on, why would you want to change that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we fail sometimes to just sit and work out at the beginning when we start a business where we actually want to take it to. For me, it was at the time, it was just about having more freedom, to be able to go to the kids' plays and pick them up from school and do the things that weren't always that possible within corporate, because you had to have permission. You had to have consent to have the day off or to finish early or whatever that would look like. So for me, it was just about giving myself that level of financial freedom. So I don't know where suddenly it all became this like roller coaster of whatever it became, but it just happened. It just happened. And I think it does for plenty of people, doesn't it? We don't know what is happening. And I think, like you, I didn't have a mentor or a coach or anybody to be able to sort of say, whoa, come back a minute, Emma, you need to have a sit and look at this. I didn't have any of that. I wish I did have that. But to be honest, I didn't even know this sort of thing existed back then.
No. I was the same. I had no idea. And actually, even when I would try and outsource stuff, I could never find like the right fit for like a small business in hospitality that understood the intricacies of a small business town, not a big retail brand, not a big restaurant, because it's a very different tactic to what you would use at a scale. Some of it's replicable, but a lot of the places just didn't get it. And it's why I probably didn't end up getting a mentor, because I'm like, I just can't find the people that actually get what is inside this business. And that was, in a way, even though there was a team and I had family around me, it was a very lonely place a lot of the time. And I don't think people realize that when they think, oh, look, you're doing really well. You're really busy. Yeah, you didn't see me at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, though, did you?
It's always 3 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Isn't it just? So obviously you kind of took the power back and decided to build a business that you wanted for yourself, that fitted around your life. Do you feel like you've actually achieved that now?
Just taking a very short break to tell you about something I've got that I absolutely love and think you will love too. Now, I know how many of you hate creating content, and it's my area and zone of genius. That is exactly why I've created my really fun filming days. And yes, content can be fun. So if the thought of creating reels makes you cringe, or you are sitting there wondering what on earth to film, this is exactly what you need. On a really fun filming day, you'll be with me and 3 other amazing business owners to create a bank of content in one go, so you're not constantly setting up your camera, trying to think of ideas, or putting it off until next week again. In just 3 hours, you'll leave with over 60 reels and 30 photos that can be used over the next 3 months and reused and repurposed however you want. And I have got sessions coming up all over the UK. To find out more, check out the link in the show notes, or just drop me a message with the word fun and I'll send you the details.
Yes, there is still a lot more that I want to do. I think what I've done is probably the opposite. So it was 2021 when I sort of we slowly closed down the other business. It was sort of 2021. I think it was probably 2023 before it was fully closed, because nothing's ever quick, is it, when you want to do things?
No.
So it was 2021 when I started to sit there and think, well, what is it I actually want to do? And, I always joke and say, I took myself off to an island, and I didn't. I absolutely didn't. I sat at home with notebooks and reading and doing all of the things to try and actually work out what I wanted. And all I knew at that point was I wanted to be able to help people to be happier in business, to actually not do what I've done. That was all I could think of. And what I did then, I suppose, really was I sort of let myself float with that for quite a while, rather than actually doing the business things, because I was afraid of building another monster business. I had this real fear of, if I start working hard again, if I start doing too many hours, I'll get back into that old routine that I got back into. So for me, it was only really the beginning of 2023 when I actually started to take this business seriously. I'd had clients and been doing work, but it was 2023 when I started to take it seriously. And my story, 2023 turned out to be not going to swear, but not a great year for me. So it slowed me right back down again. So in terms of freedom, financial freedom, absolutely. This morning I've done some work in my membership. We've had a training and things in there. Then I decided I wanted to just go off for a walk. So I've been out for a walk, and then obviously I've come back to do this with you. That is my dream, if that makes sense to anybody. It perhaps doesn't to a lot of people. To me, that is my dream, to be able to, do the things that I want to do. But on the back of that, I still want to have a nice holidays and, and all of those sort of things. So I know that you still have to do the work to get that, that level of financial freedom in there. So that was a long-winded way of answering your question. So yes, absolutely. But I just need to tail down the freedom bit a little bit and put my business head on a little bit more to get myself back into that, the financial place that I would love to be in. But I am very, very happy where I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. I think we're often battling that balance between our version of what freedom and running the business our way looks like versus how much money we can bring in. Because we were just talking about, before we started recording, around a lot of business owners are just finding it hard at the moment. And it is hard. It'd be wrong to say it isn't. But there are so many people that are either pivoting what they're doing or rethinking what they're doing because they can't see what's working. And there is a lot, and from my perspective, there is definitely a lot of marketing out there that's telling you to not do this and you shouldn't do that and you should be doing this. Like, oh gosh, every time I go onto social media, there's someone telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing. And I'm like, I can't listen to this anymore. At what point did I take advice from someone else's social media post? I just finding it, and I can see from people's perspective why they are now doubting their own business acumen and their ideas of what they've got, because
Absolutely.
that must be just so awful going on there and kind of having this messaging thrown at you which isn't necessarily relevant to you or your business, and you don't know what's going on behind the person's social media business or social media behind their business that are posting these things. You have absolutely no idea, and I think that's what I find so frustrating right now.
Absolutely. And do you know what? When we are going through a tough period, as you say, we absolutely are right now. The world is changing, the way people buy is changing, the way people interact is changing. Everything is AI is coming, and so much stuff is changing in this world that we've sort of got accustomed to over the last few years, that when that happens, we naturally go into this panic mode a little bit, don't we, I suppose? Understandably, when the money stops coming in as easy as it did, it's naturally going to make us worry a little bit. And when we're in that mode, we go into this, we invest in lots of things, we do lots of things because we think it's the magic solution. And I talk a lot about building noise in your business. We build so much noise into our businesses and our lives for that matter. But actually, for me, there's three things that I always say to my clients and anybody that is prepared to listen. When you are doing anything in your business, there's three key things that you need to think about to decide whether it is noise or whether it is something that actually is relevant for you. And that's, is it making you money? Because that is important. You want to be spending your time doing things that are actually bringing money into your business. Is it moving you towards your goals? Because if your goal is to do a specific thing, then absolutely some training that's going to help you to do that is right. But if it's not, then why are you doing that specific piece of training? Or three, is it serving your clients, which is the third question, because that's important too, isn't it? But we just get pulled into all of these things. So we're doing 10 different types of social media. We're on 10 different places putting bits of content out everywhere. Whereas actually strip it all back and focus, do one thing really well rather than lots of things not so well is where I would always say. But at the minute, we're really throwing ourselves into trying everything because there's an element of desperation from people. They want to earn money. They need to earn money. And it's hard to see past that, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be a complete blocker. And actually, I mean, that I've kind of said that I'd given myself 6 months to decide whether I'm going to really stay with this business or put it to bed, as they say. Because I realized I was just working through the motions. I wasn't enjoying it. And I was finding that I was kind of, unusually for me, because I've never been someone to follow the trends. I usually do what I want, but I was getting distracted by it. And I thought, hang on a minute, this isn't working for me. This isn't going to work for my clients either, because all I'm doing is bending myself into all of these different positions to try and make people happy that one doesn't work for them and doesn't work for me. So why am I doing that?
No,
And
but it's powerful to recognise that, isn't it? It's powerful to sit here and be able to say that, if something's not quite working, you need to give yourself time to work out what that is. And, it all has to start with that clarity piece, doesn't it? Before we even start thinking about the strategy and what we do, we need to know exactly what it is we want. And that changes. We change, don't we? The world changes and it's okay to do something differently. We're seeing a lot of people pivoting at the moment, aren't we? And I think we're seeing that from two reasons. One is because the business isn't working, so they think, I need to try something else. And that's not necessarily the right approach. The other is the people who've thought, I don't actually enjoy this anymore. And therefore they're pivoting into something they enjoy. And that is a great way to go, isn't it? But yeah, it's a funny old world at the minute, isn't it?
it really is. Let's talk about joy and happiness. Where do you find the most joy and happiness outside of business? What are your things that you really love to do? What lights you up?
Oh, do you know, I'm such a simple, easy person to please. Take me to a pub and just let me sit there where there's people chatting and doing the thing. And I am in my absolute happiest. Put me on a plane and put me somewhere sunny and do that. Absolutely got me. So Spain is my happy place. Last year we did 7 weeks. We we got in the car and we just drove off for 7 weeks through France and Spain, and took my Mac with me so I could, work as we go. And that, to me, that was what I've always wanted to do. When I left my job at Britannia, which was the building society I work for, I remember saying to everybody, I'll be in Spain, give me a couple of years and I'll be in Spain. Okay, it might be 20 odd years later, but I'm there.
Oh, I bet that trip was just amazing. Just having that freedom.
It absolutely was. I look at pictures of me when I was there, and I consider myself in a happy place now. But when I look at pictures of me when I was there, there's an even bigger sparkle, an even bigger twinkle in my eyes in terms of, what it is. So the plan is to do it again soon this year.
Oh, are you going to do the same or different route? That's the question.
Yeah, probably about 8 weeks. Might do a different route. I don't know. We haven't thought that bit through. We need to get a bit more finished in this renovation project we've got going on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I find that travel is like one of the most powerful ways to get inspiration and experience and see life in a different way that you haven't seen before. I think we get so stuck in routines because, let's face it, we are creatures of habit. But what travel does, it forces you to open your eyes to different possibilities, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I see the world with a completely different set of eyes than I used to. It's little things like, I remember, I can't remember whether it was last year or the year before, I did a walking challenge where, even when it was raining, I don't do rain, I don't do getting wet or anything like that. I set myself a challenge to go out for walking every day, and I'd walk around the local park. And I've lived in this area for 50 years. It's not like I've only been here a short space of time. So I've seen that. I've been in that park millions of times with my kids when they were little and all sorts. And it was the first time I actually felt like I saw the park, if that makes sense. Actually noticing the things that were going on around me rather than being there with this constantly trying to work out what was next, what job I needed to do. I was just literally there in the park, and it was just so lovely.
Yeah, I think that can be so just powerful I mean, I don't take the phone when I go walking with the dog anymore. The phone stays at home, much to my other half. What if you have an accident? I'm like, I grew up without mobile phones. I'll be fine.
People forget that, don't they?
Yeah. There were ways and means before. It will be fine. It will, that's what I say anyway. So any opportunity I have, I leave my phone at home. Only because I know that I want to go on it, and there'll be something drawing me to it. And actually, I don't need that right at that moment in time. I just need to be out and away, and then it kind of opens up your mind to possibilities. Emma, I've absolutely loved this chat with you. I mean, we could talk for literally hours because you've got so much knowledge and wealth of experience that you can share with so many people. You have an incredible event coming up at the end of the year as well, if I'm correct.
You are, yes, December the 7th, spot on.
Yeah, and you've got various other bits and bobs going on, which if I was slightly closer, I would definitely be at, without a doubt. But I will hopefully make it to one very soon. Where can people find you and find out more about how they can connect with you?
Okay, again, Emma keeps everything really easy. So my website is emmahine.co.uk, and on the socials you'll find me as I am Emma Hine.
Amazing. Emma, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation today. I'll be back again next week with another episode of Stories That Sell.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another conversation on Stories That Sell. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out the show notes for anything we talked about today. I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway was from today's episode. So tag me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and share it to your stories. I always love hearing what resonates with our listeners. And if you haven't already, make sure you're following the podcast, subscribe, leave a review and send it to all of your friends. I'll see you on the next episode.